John, I have a question. Is it possible for a child to be grounded and not grounded at the same time?
Um, I guess, but only if they're living in two houses.
Exactly. That I was talking to a friend whose child told him that rule doesn't exist at mom's house. And I realized this kid is running two different operating systems.
Yeah, two sets of rules, two sets of expectations, two versions of normal.
Yeah, and neither one is wrong. But I'm just thinking the child's brain is like, cool. So which universe are we in today?
Yeah, welcome to the cognitive load of living in two homes.
Right? I mean, I can barely remember where I left my keys, and this kid is switching parenting frameworks every Friday.
Let's start the show.
Sean's got the facts and science to share. Sean's got the questions flying everywhere. Two minds collide in a curious zone. A podcast journey through the brain you own. Sean teaches Sean about his brain. It's weird, it's wild, it's hard to explain. Neurons fire and the jokes remain. Sean teaches Sean about his brain.
Welcome back to John Teaches Sean About His Brain, the show where John and I discuss the world and how the brain operates in different situations and environments. Today, we're talking about children of divorce who live in two different homes, and specifically what it means for a developing brain to grow up with two sets of rules, expectations, routines, emotional climates. Now, we're not here to judge parents or parenting styles. We're just here to understand how young brains adapt and what they're truly responding to, where stress can manifest, and what actually helps kids feel safe and regulated when their lives are split across two different worlds. Let's get into it. Hi, John. It's good to see you.
It's good seeing you, Sean. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. I did. I was just what sparked this is having a conversation with a person that is divorced, has a young child, and was kind of not lamenting, but just kind of describing, um, how hard it is to try to strike the balance between, what they do at one house, knowing that they're going to go to another house and maybe have a different environment.
Yeah, that can be tough.
And then we're talking about developing brains here
Hmm.
and the effect. I think there might be some positives, but I was just curious to get your thoughts on what happens to a child in this environment.
Yeah, I think that a lot of times this can be almost more dramatic for the parents than the child because a lot of times they're so
Oh,
concerned about what it's doing to the child, and sometimes parents can try to overcompensate and make things worse, really. So I think it's hard for everybody involved. Divorces are hard, and if you're talking about two families, it's a divorce usually, or the parents weren't ever married and they're splitting time. But that's
yeah,
different from if a spouse passes away or something like that. Then that's a different set of problems. But then you still have the one household. But if you have two households,
hmm,
it's usually from a divorce. So there's a lot of things that go into that for the parent as well as the child. But when we're talking about kids, the thing about the brain is that it's so adaptable, and it's always trying to figure out, what do I need to do to fit into this situation? How can I change to make things easier right here and for me right now? And the brain, it really starts becoming flexible and adaptable like around ages 3 and 4, 3, 4, and 5,
mm,
somewhere in that area is
that
where
early.
yeah, where you really
Okay,
start getting it to
okay,
be adaptive. And then I guess I'm just kind of throwing out, this is like the shotgun effect. I'm throwing out all kinds of things. This is coming to mind here. So I'll stop after this one. You can start asking some questions. But the other part of that is that having to switch houses and switch rules and expectations and things like that and learn different sets from different parents is like uh, live training. It's like situational scenario based training, but in live action, because that's what your brain eventually needs to learn to do anyway. Because when you're at work, when you're at school, all of these things that we do as humans, we have to learn how to switch into different cognitive modes and cognitive mindsets based on what the rules are and the expectations are in the situation we're in now. So we're constantly switching situations as we grow up. So this is a way to, learn that, practice that. If you're looking for positives, that's a good positive.
One that I overlooked. I mean, because you've talked about this before, we've talked about this before on the show, but you just got me thinking that I think I'm not alone in this. Is I act differently, at home with my friends than I would at the office. Not that dramatic, but there's different rules, right? Like whether it be HR rules or even societal rules. There are things that I might say and do around close knit friends and family that I might not do in that scenario. And then there's probably you just mentioned several scenarios where you do have to like act differently, and that requires a little bit of cognitive load to kind of go, I'm here are the rules, here's what I need to be doing. And so I don't want to call it inconsistency, but the going back and forth between the two houses and having different rules and expectations, it feels like, and I know I'm doubling down on what you just said, but if that could help me, if I started at an earlier age, to kind of figure out, okay, I'm at mom's house and this is what is I need to be doing here. Here are the rules. Here are the expectations. Go to dad's. And then that kind of translates to I'm at work. There's maybe some things I shouldn't say or do, that I'm at home. It's sounding like I'm a really like horrible person at home and I just try to hide it. You get what I mean. There's just different rules and expectations.
Absolutely. You have to have a place where you can let your hair down. And so
that's hurtful though. I can never let my hair down.
That wasn't a good choice of words. What did you say before? Words matter. I need to be more.
Words matter. Let my hair down.
But just, that you're right. I guess so. I just had this thought where you were talking that we've talked about before how as you grow up in a house with siblings, that in one sense each sibling is growing up in a different situation. Yeah. Each of them are kind of in their own situation. So like I grew up, I had 4 mothers. So it was my dad and me and then my 4 moms, which I had the mom that gave me birth. And then I had 3 older sisters that acted like my mom and bossed me around all the time. They have a different take on it. And I think Casey agrees with them that it's probably explains why I'm spoiled, but that's a whole different thing as being the youngest child. But I just felt like it was like, 3, 4 moms. But the point is my oldest sister, when she was born into the house, she was an only child, and that lasted a couple of years. And then my next sister was born, and now the first sister, things have shifted a little bit for her, but the second child was born with an older sister. And the oldest child will never have an older sister. So that's, differences. And then it was 10 years later before my next sister was born. So now you've got like 2 sets of families, and I was 3 years after that. So all of us had kind of different positions in the family, just like any families do. There's also, genetic differences. So you get passed down different genes. So you have different personalities to start with. So now if you have a child with an outgoing personality and one that's a little bit more introverted, they get treated differently in the house by their siblings and by their parents. So they're growing up in a different situation. So, you can think of a lot of ways in how children in the same house are growing up in different families than each other just because of those. But if you really get down to it, those are minor compared to all of the commonalities that these kids grow up with, because usually, so especially, so in my case, I grew up with parents that didn't divorce, so they stayed together. So I have, the same parents. We lived in the same house for, till I was in middle school. But a lot of people live, grew up in the same house, went to this, in the same community, went to the same church, had the same family, friends, and network. So that was the same for all of us, the same rules. I know that even if my parents treated each one of us a little bit differently for all the reasons I've already mentioned, we still had the same rules that we followed and the same belief systems. So there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of similarities there. And so you would think kids growing up in that situation, when they became adults, they would still be, kind of alike. But when my dad passed away, my mom spent time traveling to kind of each of her kids' homes, so me and my three siblings, and would spend some time with us, and we were wanting her to do that. And she would stay for several weeks at a time at each house and just kind of move around at different times. And she had her
Mm-hmm.
own place too for most of that time. But she had conversations, especially with Casey, but she did with me a couple of times too, that I remember, when she would say, "It's just so amazing to me how all four of you kids are so different." And I would be like, I know we're different, but what do you mean?" And she said, "Just your the way you run your house, the way you live your lives, like the types of food you eat, when you eat, the conversations you have, how you interact with your kids, just everything is so different." And so I was thinking about that in terms of when the four of us left, the nest where we were all kind of raised the same. Then we go out and marry somebody. All four of my three other siblings, we were all married, and we all have our own kids. So then you look at that other person coming in, and now they're coming from a family with their backgrounds and beliefs. And so I can just see, and my two older sisters married kind of in that same community that we grew up in. But my sister closest to my age married a guy from Utah, and I married a girl from North Carolina. So that, being from Kansas, that was so, just all the different things that come into it. You end up with different households, and it's like, to me, they felt like we were all still the same, but we were
Mm-hmm.
really different from each other. So I think with kids having to go back and forth between houses, not that they're like my mom going back and forth, but I'm sure they'll see differences, and that's okay. And they'll understand that rules are different. I mean, they'll try to exploit that, I'm sure. Like you said,
Well,
your
yeah.
friends kids, mom doesn't make me do this. So they'll pit that, because if they don't do that, then you should worry about your kids, because they're probably not normal if they're not trying to work the system a little bit. So
So it's normal to try to push. It's not even pushing boundaries, but like try to pull a fast one, right?
yeah,
Like,
that's
because there's some sense of, uh, I get two birthdays and two Christmases, and,
yeah,
but then there's another sense of like, just what we're talking about is try to. I guess I'm being dishonest. I go to dad's house and dad's like, do this. And I'm like, well, mom doesn't make me do that.
yeah,
Even though that might not be true, you're saying that's normal behavior for humans to try to like slip one
yeah.
past mom or dad.
Yes, and younger humans uh, aren't quite as good at it as, older humans who practiced a lot more. But you would
Oh,
expect
yeah,
them to
yeah.
start doing that to some degree. I mean, like at work, people make excuses at work or try to come across different at work than home. So you're always kind of doing this to some degree. So I would expect kids to do that. And I guess the point is that kids are neurologically equipped to handle different sets of rules and different expectations. So I think that probably the challenge isn't this cognitive switching between residences. Is probably more about the emotional context around that switching. Like what are the parents contributing? What are they doing? How does that look from a parent side of how they're handling it? Because that determines in large part how the kids are going to handle it, because the kids don't have a say ultimately in how that's being handled. It's up to the two parents. They're just stuck in the middle. So how the parents handle the situation determines how good or how bad it can be for the kids.
What's interesting is, and I'm speaking a lot in generalities here. I'm not talking about a particular situation, but
Mm-hmm.
I think in many of these occasions I haven't seen that many, but I've known divorced couples who have kids, and it seems like, and I think I was laboring under this a similar delusion that you're now breaking, but that overly concerned about how this is going to affect the children or the child. And so, because I'm so worried about the damage that we're going to do by having two different households and all of that, is that parents oftentimes make matters worse or don't make them better by trying so hard to overcome that. When you're saying kids are actually, their brains are wildly resilient,
Mm-hmm.
and as long as there's consistency, even though there's two different sets of rules, that's actually good for them. And we're early on, we're 15 minutes in, but the first takeaway, maybe the biggest, is like, don't if you don't know any better, kids' brains are pliable and pretty resilient, and kids are.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're spending all that time trying to make the kids okay, or with this situation, it might be unnecessary. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does. And I think that we should probably also talk about the reverse of this, in that, when you're talking about the kids can pit the parents against each other,
Mm-hmm.
we're assuming two adults who want the best for their kids and who have split amicably and realize that they're better off and their kids are better off when they're not together. And they
Yes.
both agree we want to do what's best for our kids. But there's a lot of situations where that's not the case. And then in those
Right.
situations, the parents, one parent will pit the kid against the other parent. So it like
Right.
it changes the kind of the triangle dynamics there, to where it's not the kid the kid that's trying to pit them against each other. It's one parent trying to pit another. So it can get really, really bad that way. And I know that there's a lot of times, when parents aren't real emotionally stable and don't have their kids' best interest in mind, which happens a lot, unfortunately, then they end up using their kids. And a lot of times the reason they're divorced is because they, aren't set with themselves very well. And so
Right.
they'll try to emotionally hijack their kids, and they'll try to place blame. And I know kids who grow up with just a heavy burden of guilt on their shoulders because of their parents splitting. They feel responsible for it. And now they're
Yeah.
adults and they're still trying to deal with all this guilt they felt because a parent
Yeah.
was like, yeah, you went with your mom instead of me, and you never did check to see how I was. You never cared about me, type of thing, where it's like, how does a kid at 5 years old, how are they supposed to check on, so, and
Yeah.
you don't always think of that when it's you think back and think, I should have done more, because you can make people feel that way. And that's a terrible thing to do to kids, but that happens a lot as well. So
Yeah.
it's part of it is kind of a kid, and that can be handled real easy when a kid is trying to work both parents. Where it gets kind of sinister is where a parent tries to work the kid against the other parent.
And so you've also fixed something in my thinking about this, is because I was looking at I kept talking about consistency, right? And so going to mom's house, knowing the rules and the expectations, all that stuff, and then for the weekend I go to dad's house, whatever. What I'm neglecting to add into this is the possibility that so let me put it this way. Imagine this. You have a set of rules at work and you have a set of rules at home and expectations.
Mm-hmm.
But every day that you go to work, it's a new set of rules and a new set of expectations.
Yeah, that would be rough.
Well, I mean, think about what your brain, the cognitive load that, and this, I'm talking about adults.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll get back to my point about kids in a second, but I mean, if you can take a second and try to imagine you go to work and it doesn't matter what you do. When you go to the office and let's say you get there at 8 o'clock in the morning and the rules aren't posted, you have to figure out what the rules are, but they change every day. And what that would do to your brain and just your stress level, your emotional, I'm imagining how out of whack you would be every single day.
Yeah, and your brain would learn that you can't trust rules and systems because they're going to change anyway, and they're always changing.
Oh,
So now you've
oh.
got trust issues, attachment issues, a lot of issues from that when there's not consistency there.
And
Yeah.
so now you're a little kid or a child, a child of some age, and maybe not every day, but now it's not consistent what the rules and expectations are. They change.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean between the two houses. I mean at one of the houses.
Yes, right.
Right? Like every time I go to whichever parent,
Mm-hmm.
every time I go to that parent's, like the expectations are a little different. The rules are a little bit different. And nobody told me about the change. It just, I got to figure this out.
I figured it out.
Yeah. I got to
When
figure
I got
this
yelled
out.
at, I figured it out.
And so what you just said, I'm hearing you say that could lead to attachment issues, trust issues. Did you say is there more?
Yeah, well, like just emotional issues. So I was saying you can't trust systems and you can't trust people. And so there's, emotional problems from it and trust issues and attachment issues and trying to understand, what the attachment is to another person. And I've seen before, and I'm like you, I have a few friends or few experiences with this. So I don't have a lot to draw from, but I've seen before where one of the parents tries to be the good parent and get lots of gifts and let them do anything they want. They want to be popular. And the other parent gets so frustrated by that. And then do I try to match that? Do I not? And when I've been asked, I always say, absolutely not. Be the parent that is consistent, like just overly consistent on everything you do.
Yeah.
Be kind, obviously, but be consistent because that's what kids really long for. Even if they throw a fit at the consistency, they long for that consistency.
They do crave consistency.
They do.
Right?
They do.
Our
and
brain
then they
does.
end up understanding because what they're learning is that other parent, they start to feel manipulated and used. So kids will catch on at some point. And I've seen it, more than once where that's happened. And the parent that's consistent as the child grows older and older is the one that they rely on and trust, and they don't trust the other one as much. So, just hopefully both parents are really consistent and kind. But if
we
not,
made some leaps here by, in the beginning, I set up this situation of two well-adjusted, stable adults who have amicably separated and are running two different households. And I quickly, but I'm trying really hard, not only on this podcast, but in life, not to stereotype people.
Mm-hmm.
You've
good.
Just beaten that into my head, and I use it every day. Don't stereotype people. You can stereotype things.
Yes.
But it's hard here to, because it's impossible to know every one of these relationships. So it's hard not to generalize or stereotype some of these things. So I'm struggling, not in a bad way, but I'm just trying to be very careful and walk a line between overly stereotyping these situations. But I guess I'll go back to movie tropes, right? Because I love movies.
Yeah.
But the common movie trope is fun dad, strict mom. In these, right? There's a divorce. Usually dad feels guilty and he's fun dad. Yeah. So when the kids go with him, they're going to the arcade, the zoo, going on adventures, having fun, not a lot of rules, buying them stuff. And then they go to mom. And again, this is a movie trope. I'm not, but then they go to mom's and mom is like, don't do that. Here are the rules. Go take out the garbage or whatever. And it's like, this place sucks. I have fun at dad's. But what I believe and what I'm hearing you say, and not confirmation bias, I think that the reality is that over time, no matter really who the child is, they kind of learned like that's not what I'm getting at dad's is not real. It's not real. It's not what I need. I'm actually like the structure that mom sets up and holds me to these things. That's actually what is more beneficial, even though they may not put it in those words, but that's the end result.
Yeah. And they know what to expect, and it's not a surprise because you might be exhausted from school and you get home and then dad's like, we're going to do this, just trying to make it fun. You're like, I just need some downtime type thing. So Yeah, it can be that. I think that there's also, uh, so we'll not use the movie trope. We'll just say again that we're assuming that both parents are, uh, that have agreed. They're trying to set up a really good system for their kids, and there's no real competition. They're not pitting, the kid against each other. So there's still, even in that situation, you think that's the best possible situation for a kid in a divorced family, that they're working together and they're making this better. There's
Mm-hmm.
still so much to deal with because, like, school stuff, you forget your homework, or you leave some of your project at one house instead of the other, or your homework was there and you can't get it. There's inconsistency. Even though you each has the rules, there's different bedtimes and routines, and you do have to switch that, and that's can be good for kids, but that's still something they have to work through and deal with, and it can be frustrating. It'd be like
Yeah.
working two jobs, like you're saying, with different rules at each one. There can be difficulty with extracurricular activities like sports events. Do one parent thinks the other was going to go, and then neither one show up,
Mm.
or and there's
Oh,
communication gaps, and all of those things can cause issues for
yeah.
kids. Not that they can't be overcome, but those are things I think you can be, should be concerned about if you're a parent with a divorced parent where you're sharing custody of a kid. And by the way, if I could say, that research has shown that sharing custody is much better for kids than a sole custody.
Okay. Yeah.
And I know it's not always possible, because
Right.
sometimes you
Right.
have a
Right.
really bad deadbeat parent. But if possible, the the research shows that shared parenting has better outcomes on, like, emotional well-being, behavioral issues, psychological well-being, even physical health. So it's just much better to share custody of
If it's
kids, so they have
possible,
both
having
parents.
both parents involved is better,
That's way better than a sole
if
parent,
possible. Again,
if possible.
because
Yeah.
we're bleeding into this whole show is outside of my area of expertise, but you know, there's these balances of, like, you're saying, having both parents involved, if possible, is better for all
Hmm.
those reasons.
Hmm.
But then, the obvious one is that one of the parents is cannot be involved
Yeah.
for name the
Yep.
reason.
Hmm.
But then there's just on the fringe where it's like one of the parents is maybe not reached a level where we all agree they just shouldn't be involved with the
Hmm.
kids, but they're still around and they're still involved, but boy, they're kind of close to
Hmm.
to they
Yeah.
shouldn't be involved. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because there was a podcaster I used to listen to, stand up comic, but he would always ask the question, when we were talking about when he was talking about child development. He always asked the rhetorical question: is it better to have the deadbeat dad in the life, or just have him disappear?
Hmm.
Right. And I know you're saying, like, if possible, have them both, but, like, I heard him ask that question for a long time, and I've always
Hmm.
thought about which one's better. Just have the dad who just up and disappears and never comes back, versus not a great human being and he's in my life, you know?
I That's a tough question. So I know there's going to be individual differences, but I think that, from kind of, and this isn't my research area, as you know, but just in, getting an advanced degree, you study a lot of different areas. And so my understanding of this area is that a parent, a deadbeat dad that's still around in the long run, is better than a deadbeat dad that just disappears, because
Ah,
of so many issues that brings with abandonment, and always think, was that my fault? Did I do so? It's just there's so many things when a parent just leaves, versus if you're growing up and you can see that they're flawed and you're trying to deal with it, even if you're not around them as much. When you are around them, you understand why you're not around them as much, and You're more
Oh,
grateful
that's
for the home you came
interesting.
from,
Yeah.
where you're
Yeah.
staying. So I think that overall, and again, there's going to be exceptions. Like if the parent is endangering the child, then yes,
Right. 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 Right.
they shouldn't be
Yeah.
home. But
Yeah.
if they're just kind of, you think that person's just a loser, like they aren't harming anybody, but they're just a loser. It might be
Yeah.
better that the kid knows who they are and is around them some. And
Yeah.
man, I'm
Uh,
throwing out all kinds of advice for people that I don't even know. This is
yeah,
just
I
random.
kind of did this to you. I'm sorry because we were
All of a
talking
sudden,
about.
I'm getting uncomfortable.
I wanted to talk to you about the effect of children of divorce living in
Mm-hmm.
two houses, and all of a sudden I've drug you into this new arena. I'm sorry, but
No, that's all right.
these are the things that I'm not fascinated by, but I just think they're interesting topics because I mean I don't know what the actual number is, but there are a lot of divorces in this country,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of those divorces there's children involved.
Mm-hmm. Isn't it
And
over 50% of marriages?
I believe it is, but the one thing, and I'm going to keep doing it to you. I'm sorry, because I was just thinking about, but it does bring us back to two. Let's go back to two households, two parents splitting time, but now the divorce. We've been at this for a couple years now, and kind of got it down, and then one of the parents starts into a new relationship. And so now at one of the houses, just for the sake of simplicity, let's say mom has a boyfriend, gets a boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
There's a guy coming around. And so now, it was like we've been doing this for 2 years, all general things, but I'm just to make it easier to swallow here is 2 years. I've been going back and forth between mom and dad's house, and we kind of got this figured out. And yeah, maybe, there's a miscommunication about the football game that I'm playing in, or whatever. But for the most part, we got it going. And then mom starts dating this guy. And now there's a guy around when I'm going to mom's house.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, what does that do to the brain, to the emotions?
Yeah, that just throws another big disruption up in, you think you've got things figured out, and now the rules have changed again, and now things are changing again, and it feels unstable. That doesn't mean that shouldn't happen, because it might be the best thing in the long run. If one parent connects with somebody that they love and are intimate with, that can be beneficial to the child. So it depends, but it does bring up just a whole new set of issues that the kid has to now try to work through and deal with. And
because I'm back to movie tropes, but it's if we're at a point where now, the guy like tries to tell the kid something or whatever, you're not my dad, Steve,
yeah.
or whatever, and
you're not thinking of Step Brothers, are you?
no,
when they're adults still.
Yeah, that's a whole different. That's a whole different
There's some
thing
other
we could talk
issues
about.
and problems with that. No, I think that would be some advice that all new males entering, well, I guess this would be for moms too, for females entering, but males entering the picture would be, you're not coming in to replace that kid's dad. Like, the kid has a dad already. You're now the kid's mom's significant other, and be that person and be happy to be a significant other. And if the other dad is gone and that kid needs a dad, I mean, you're
different.
you're
Yeah.
a dad to the kid. But I'm just saying, if there's if their father is actively participating, then it's better not to try to confuse the child even more by being their dad. Like, they have a dad, they have a mom, and then you have a role too, which can be a really important supportive role, because then you can show the child how you treat their mother, that they can learn from that as well. And you can be a extremely important role model for them without having to be the authoritarian dad for them, and it also depends, these relationships have to be worked out with the mother and the new husband or the new person in her life. So that has to be a part of it. What does the mother need your help with in raising the child? But yeah, I think if you go in thinking I'm going to be the dad, that can be disruptive to the whole situation, especially confusing to the child, and it can really disrupt things.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, I think you've kind of answered this, but I was thinking about then what are some of the negative outcomes for the child
Hmm.
in that situation? As far as we're talking about how the brain adjusts to change and different households and all of that.
Yeah, so I think the biggest issue for a child that's going through the split households, if there's going to be problems, I think it's emotional problems rather than
Mm,
cognitive problems. So learning
yeah.
rules, switching rules, all of those things the brain is built to do. It's the emotional trauma that can be caused, and kind of that long last the lingering effects of that, which can be really bad. So for example, and parents have to deal with this too, because if you have you're a parent in this situation, and you have rules for your kids, you're trying to protect your 8-year old, your 9-year old, and you say no R-rated movies because of worried about nightmares and them seeing things they shouldn't, and then they go to the other parent's house whose rule is they can watch whatever they want. Now when they come back, you're dealing with the nightmares and the questions, and it can be really frustrating and confusing, um, and again, difficult on the child. But I think you have to just stay firm in like what your rules are, and just kind of just stick to those, and let the child know that these are the rules here. And as you get older, things will change. I know one of the issues I just thought of that parents sometimes have is cell phones, because a lot of people say kids should be a certain age before they get a cell phone, but if they're younger and they're going to their parents, the other parent wants to have access to them. And so I mean there's
Yeah.
there's so many things to work through like that. But
Yeah.
yeah,
But
it
you're
can be
saying,
tough.
because I just heard you, I don't want to pin you down here. I'm being really mean to John today.
Go ahead.
But again, I go, when you're at mom's house, the rule is, you're 12 years old, no R rated movies.
Hmm.
Let's even say you're 14. Let's make it a little even more like you're 14 years old, no R rated movies.
Hmm.
And then you go to dad's, and dad's like, you can watch, that's ridiculous. You're 14. You can watch whatever you want. And then you come back to mom's, and mom says you can't watch that rated R. Well, I can. Dad lets me watch it at his house. So there's the pause button. That's like the tactical pause right there, where then you're saying, mom saying, well, whatever you do, those are your dad's rules.
Hmm.
But when you're at my house, my rule is no R-rated movies.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
I'm talking about for the child. Mom and dad, mom and the dad can have an offline conversation with the child there. But I'm saying for the child
mhm.
in this very particular set of circumstances, I've kind of made you answer. But in this set, like staying the course, saying
I
those are
think
the
that's
rules
really
here,
important.
yeah, that's what you're saying.
I think that's really important. And, even to say why, and just say, I don't want you to have to deal with and think about and think through all the issues that adults in rated R movies have to think through and deal with. And so while you're here, I'm going to protect you from having to deal with that. And it sounds like I'm taking away fun from you, but it's just the rules. I think those are the best rules. And when you're here, you have to follow my rules. When you're at your dad's, if he lets you watch that, then he lets you watch it. And, but here,
Yeah,
these are the rules. And ultimately, the kid might, well, at 14, they're probably not going to throw a fit and roll around kicking on the floor. I hope not. But they'll be
no, they'll
upset.
just stomp up. They'll stomp up the
Stomp up, slam
stairs
a
and yell,
door.
I hate it here," and slam the door.
Yeah, slam the door and say, I hate it here and I hate you or
Yeah,
whatever. And then,
yeah.
but they're going to appreciate that in the long run. It's really hard in the moment. It's so hard. And I think that I don't mind today you pinning me down and answering some of these questions, because I feel like that I want to speak up to protect kids in this situation, because I think the kids are the ones that end up catching the brunt of everything. And the adults always feel like, poor me, this
Hmm.
relationship didn't work out and I'm treated bad. And I don't want to downplay that either, because I know there can be really bad situations. But you were in that situation. The kid had no choice. You had a choice to get into it or not. That doesn't mean you should, it's not like you made your bed, so now lie in it. I'm not saying that.
Right.
But I'm saying there
Yeah.
were some choices that were made that you had control over to get you to where you are now, but the kid didn't. And so
Right.
I'm just always for, doing whatever you can do to protect the kid, because that's, man, they have no say in this. And what happens in these situations to them are going to affect them for the rest of their lives. And
That's where you
what
just go
happens
ahead.
to them, even if you aren't divorced, even if you're still with your spouse, with your kids, how you treat them in your home is going to affect them for the rest of their lives. So it's not
That
just
was
about split parents, it's about any parents.
yes. So I just say, I'm kind of saying again what you just said, but in my words, because my whole thought process for this episode was focused on the child because I'm thinking about brain development.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say, like, every situation is unique. But in a divorce where children are involved, everybody hurts. It stinks for everybody.
Yep.
And so I'm definitely not saying, I don't believe you are, like the adults, hey, suck it up, no one cares. We're just saying our focus, at least for me, what I'm focusing on is the long-term and short-term effects on children
Mm-hmm.
who have to live in two houses. That's how this whole topic kind of came about. Is I'm interested in brain development, emotional development, and then now throw this wrinkle in there. Because I also like what you said too. Forget about divorce. We could have we could have a mom, dad, and kids in the house and no divorce, and we can still affect the
Yeah.
long-term growth of a child.
Yeah, and I was starting to say that I know situations where the parents should have been divorced and split, and they
Me too.
didn't. And that there's research that also shows if parents stick together and there's constant fighting and bickering and yelling, and especially if it's physical, that children are better off if the parents divorce. Research shows that they're better emotionally if they're divorced. So there are situations where parents should have divorced and didn't, and I think did more harm to their kids. So it's not
Agreed.
just about divorce, it's about
Agreed.
how adults are treating children, really, is what it comes down to.
So if it's more comfortable to stay within the framework for the listener or anybody else of what I provided in the beginning, that's fine. But I didn't realize it at first. I thought that this was that I didn't realize the can of worms that I would be opening, but I love that it happened.
Yeah.
When we started just talking about divorced kids, two houses, but what we're really talking about is again, what we do as adults, parents, and how that affects our kids, our children. And sometimes in ways that we don't even realize until much later on in life. Maybe never realize it. But so going back to this part is like, you do it all the time. And I love this about you is you brought up some positives. You brought up positives and negatives about some of these situations, right? Like increased cognitive flexibility, the ability to kind of change between contexts with the work and the home example.
Yep.
So it's not all negative is what I'm saying, is like not all of the things that we're saying are negative. There's some positives.
Absolutely. Yeah. There can be, because again, it might be a situation where it's more detrimental to the child for the parents to stay married or stay together. So sometimes it's better if they do split. So I think that, parents just need to, we've already talked about consistency, and if the more you can keep it consistent, and then, how we are as humans, we like, having our own things and having the way we do things and having our routines. And so part of the problem can be, as you switch, it's not just a different set of rules, but it's different routines about how I do things. So, even the things that you have, like at one place, I have this item, but I don't at another, or this place I have a toothbrush, but here I have one of these electric ones and all. I think if parents could also duplicate the essential items that kids have at both homes, that also helps, because then it's just more comfortable when you get there. Even though you have different homes and different rules, it can be more comfortable. You can get Google Calendar. You can share your calendar with others. So if the divorced parents, and you don't have to share your whole calendar, but you can create a personal calendar for your kids that you share with each other, so you always know what's happening. You just, if there's a doctor's appointment or a ball game or a practice or a teacher's meeting, any of those things, it goes on the calendar, so both parents see it. Even though they're not living together, they both see it and can understand it. So any time you can create, those I don't know, maybe transitional things that are the same, to make it easier to move between homes, that's just so much better.
I would have never thought of that. Something as simple as a toothbrush. I have the same toothbrush at both houses, or very
Yeah.
similar.
Like,
I'd say same, but
or yeah,
that's
but
interesting.
yeah, because it's hard to carry. You don't want to pack a suitcase every time.
Right,
So
right.
you just have the same thing. That's the thing about traveling. When you go to a hotel and you forget something and you have to use something that they have, it's just like,
Hmm.
I don't know, I
I
just
don't
don't
want to do
like it.
that.
No, I
I
don't want
don't
to do
like
that.
it.
So if you have the same things, that can be, I just thought of toothbrush, but any of those types
That's
of
a great
things,
one. Toothbrush. Yeah. Yeah.
you know, pajamas that are similar or whatever, the type of bed would be nice if you have, something similar. They don't have to be, everything doesn't have to be exactly the same. It'd be kind of weird to stage the house where everything's the
Yeah.
same.
Yeah. Where
But
it's
just
all,
kind of,
that would be weird.
yeah, but
Yeah.
just some of the essential things that you have and need, it just makes the transition easier.
Because I wonder if you brought up on a previous show about the brain, like if in a movie or a picture, if the two things are so ridiculously apart, your brain's okay with that.
Yeah.
But if you try to make them, if they're really close together but not the same, it kind of freaks your brain out.
Yeah, it does. Your brain doesn't like that. Yeah.
And so if you tried to replicate, like just tried to weirdly, sorry, that's judgmental, but like if both parents just tried to recreate the exact same environment in their homes, that your brain would freak out over that.
Yeah, it wouldn't like
Yeah, that wouldn't be good. So, okay, so I'm going to do it to you again. Maybe the last time, but I'm not sure. Two questions. Is it fair to say that in some of these situations that we've built up in this last 45 minutes, that some kids it will help them build resilience, but some kids this could build a hyper vigilant people pleaser with anxiety?
Yeah, no, that is a really good point, because how parents handle the situation is going to determine kind of which side the kid falls on in those two. Where you're saying, the what did you say, the hyper
I was thinking hyper vigilant people
vigilance?
pleaser
Yeah, yeah,
with full of anxiety.
yeah, yeah. Or a well-adjusted, it could fall either way. So it's kind of what you do. So, maybe, like, what would be some things that a parent shouldn't do that might harm a kid? Maybe we could think about that. So if
Well, you brought
there's,
up one is using the child against the other
Mhm.
parent,
Yeah, if you put the child in the middle, so that
or
kind of that
just like
parental
talking
control.
bad about the
Hmm.
other parent
Yeah.
to that child.
Yep.
Um, you know, um, like that one jumps to front of mind. That's the biggest
Yeah, and then
problem.
inconsistencies in parenting style can also. I'm
Hmm.
not in parenting style between the two. I mean inconsistencies within a home and how
Within
you
that's
parent.
yeah,
That could be
yeah.
another one. Um, the loss of relationship with one of the parents is also shown to be real. I mentioned that earlier. A sole provider is, having two parents is better than a sole provider if it works out.
Yeah.
But because losing the relationship of that one parent, and that's what I was, the research shows that's really harmful, which is why I was thinking just the deadbeat dad disappearing
Hmm.
might not be the best, just because that's just a loss like that can be
I know, but before today, I
traumatizing.
had convinced myself that was the answer. That deadbeat dad goes away is much better.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I don't know. If you're one of the parents, if you're always moving to different houses and transitioning and moving to different towns, or I don't know if there's just a lot of transitions on your side that can make it
That's
really hard on the
interesting.
kid. So it's
Yeah.
better just to stay put and think, at some point I'll be able to do these other things I want to do, but for the, this kid's sake, I'm going to try to keep things stable for them. Asking the kid to be kind of the spy and the messenger and bring you back
Oh,
secrets.
that you and I just came to that at the same time, because I realized, oh, what about, hey, what's mom, asking the child questions about the other parent.
Does mom have anybody coming around?
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
Uncle
I've
Frank.
got good reason.
Who's Uncle Frank?
Yeah.
Who's
right.
Uncle Frank?
Uncle Frank is coming around. I mean, is anybody coming to see her? I hope they are, because I want to cut back on child support payments or something like that. Wouldn't be good to get the child involved in that.
Oh, the things we do. Yeah, that's a
Tell your
horrible
mom
thing
to marry
say.
Uncle Frank. He seems like a nice guy.
So I don't have to pay child
I don't
support
have to pay
anymore.
child support. Yeah, no, there's lots of things that you shouldn't do, right?
So I think that you answered, because I had two questions. My first was about, some kids build resilience through this or are well balanced. Other ones, anxiety ridden, people pleasing. I don't remember what I said, but I was going to ask, and I think that you answered this, but I was going to ask, is there something about a particular child, their brain or their emotional makeup, that would make them go one way or another? But you said it's more about what the parents do.
Yes, because so if you think about it, we all have, it's the nature nurture thing. We all have our genetics, our genes, that we get what we get. And so we are already predisposed to maybe being anxious, or maybe, there's just different personality traits that we are born with, that we have. And so then it comes to the nurture side. It's like, what type of environment do you grow up in? And then that determines kind of how your genes are expressed, to where if you're predisposed to be more anxious about something, then never really knowing what the rules are and never really knowing what's going to happen is just going to exacerbate that, to where you grow up to be a basket case. But if you're predisposed to that, and then you have set rules and there's really good communication between the parents, you always know what's happening, then that doesn't really get expressed that much based on the environment you grow up in. So then you grow up, with a healthier, you're not as anxious about stuff.
Yeah.
And you might not even realize that you're predisposed to be anxious, because you've had such a stable framework growing up in it that you aren't an anxious person. But it's just, parents create kind of the petri dish environment for children to grow up in, and that, whatever their genetics say, a bad environment will have bad effects on whatever the genetic expressions are.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think parents are really play a big role in how kids develop and grow up, and some of the issues they deal with later in life. I think parents play a big role in the sense that they create the environment that the child grows up in.
Well, what I'm hearing, I'm not here to give anatomy or biology lessons, but two people meet and fall in love and get married, and those two people combine their genes in some way, and have this child comes out with the expression of all of those genes, those two people. Mm-hmm. So that's half of what you just said. Mm-hmm. And then now the child is in the world, and the environment that you provide for that child, the example you set for that child. So they got the genes that you gave them as well, the two of you. Mm-hmm. But then now, whatever you give them, and then, if they find that they maybe aren't right as a couple, and they decide that it would be better if they divorced, now they get divorced, and now each of them individually, and maybe sometimes together, but now they're in charge of that in their own environments here. Now there's two environments. Mm-hmm. So still got the genes that you gave that kid, but now we have two separate environments, and you're each responsible for trying to provide best possible environment that you can,
Yep.
to, I don't want to say it this way, but not screw your kid up. I mean, and I don't think that there are probably some exemptions to this rule, but I think that everybody is like, I don't want to screw this kid up,
Mm-hmm.
and they try, but we're humans. We do, sometimes we just do stuff, and especially when you throw emotions in there, and my feelings are hurt, or I actually didn't want this divorce. The other person did. Whatever the emotional investment or involvement is. So all of that to say, like, really, it's your, as a parent, solo or together, it's your job to do the best you can not to screw your kids up.
Yeah, that's true. And then when there's two households, then that you have less of an influence on that. But even
Mm-hmm.
if you stay together, you have the influence in the household. But as kids grow, they have a social life, they have school. That there's so many other influences that can start coming into it. They
That's
have
true.
coaches,
Yeah.
they have other adults, they have youth groups that they're involved in. All of these things start to influence them as well. So you
Yeah.
start to lose some of that control anyway. And now that you have a split household, that's been what control you did have has been split, in half again, or in 25 to
Even
75,
more.
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So whatever your arrangement is with the court system, it's been split again that way. And so it can feel like I don't really, I can't really do anything to help my kid grow up, but no matter how they grow up, I'm going to get blamed anyway. So it's like I'm going to get blamed, but I can't change anything. So it can be,
Right.
I know it can be tough for adults. We haven't really focused on the adults that much because I think we do need to spend more time focusing on the kids because they don't have a say so in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And then again, the last kind of piece of that is, we're talking about kids, but those kids eventually grow up,
Mm-hmm.
and some of these things, because now that child meets somebody, that now we're going to repeat the process. They meet somebody, they fall in love, they have a child, and some of these things, and they're not all traumas, just some of these little things
Mm-hmm.
you bring with you, and so now it's like recurring. It's not trauma, but it's like some of the
Kind of
things
is.
that I guess it's kind of
It's
trauma, but
kind of that way.
there's these little things that people do because that's what their parents did
Mm-hmm.
when they have kids, and maybe not realizing, I kind of screwed you up a little bit. Now you're doing it to your kids.
Yeah, they don't realize that. What's that? Is it progressive commercials where they're trying to keep them from
Oh,
being their
don't.
parents?
Those are some of my favorite.
Those are
Those are
mine
some of my
too.
favorite
But
commercials.
Casey and I have had this conversation before where we've seen a kid growing up and we feel so sorry for them because we see how they're being mistreated by parents. I don't mean always. I mean usually like emotionally mistreated. Like
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
getting played against parents, and then you see them acting out, and you go, I totally understand that. I don't blame them for acting out. I would be acting out too. And you just have so much compassion for them. And then at some point you realize, oh, they're now having kids, and I have to switch from feeling sorry for them to now being upset with them because they're doing the same thing. It's like, is that
yeah,
18 where that changes? Like you feel sorry for somebody till 18, then all of a sudden you think they're the bad person. I mean, and I'm not asking that to say we have to pick an age. I'm just making the point
yeah,
that if people become what they were kind of raised to become, and
yeah,
we feel sorry for them initially, and then we're going, oh, they're terrible people now. It's like that's the same. We saw this coming. We saw the trajectory. Like you can't at 18 or at 21, you can't push a button for a hard reset and say, okay, let's start all over now, learn new things. It's like
right.
you've just spent 20 years wiring their back channel, and now you think that they're not going to act on their back channel, which the non-conscious part of the brain is the back channel. So you've wired that with their environment. What do you expect out of them? And the point is, I think a lot of us don't expect because a lot of people don't understand how important the environment is in raising their kids. And I think, I don't know, I'm just rambling now, but it seems like older parents, and I hear people say this, that, they just kind of let you raise yourself type of thing. They didn't, and I know that wasn't really what happened, but I think the point is parents are more protective of their kids today than they used to be. And
Yes.
so, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So before parents were protective of kids, everybody turned out okay. Why are we being so overprotective now? And so I know that's the feeling a lot of times. And to me, it doesn't fall that way. It's different, but I think there are people with a lot of kind of repressed, hidden issues that they couldn't discuss that they're dealing with. That
Yeah.
if when you're protecting your kids, you're letting them discuss those things, so they grow up talking about it versus the ones who just kind of shoved it all down inside and held on to it. So
Hmm.
yeah, I am doing the shotgun approach now. I'm just rattling things that come
No,
in my
no,
head.
that wasn't, I don't feel like that was a shotgun approach. But I took a question out of that and I don't have an answer. I'm hoping it was rhetorical, but you just brought up a really good question. And that is like when you see it as a third party outside observer and you see it happening, you feel sorry for a child up to a
Mm-hmm.
point. And then at some point, I think it's later than 18, but I don't know what the number is. Then it switches to now you're maybe not understanding what's going on or even angry at them or disappointed in them
Mm-hmm.
because they're doing the thing that you saw done to them. And what you're saying is true because I is like why don't you think about that process you just described? They spent 20 some years learning this,
Mm-hmm.
and then why would they not then turn around and do it even though they didn't like it when it was being done to them, you know? So I
Right.
don't know the number, but what's the number where you go, I felt sorry for you, or I feel sorry for you, I feel sorry for you. Okay, now I'm mad at you.
Yeah. I mean,
25 or whatever that number is, but
well,
we
in the
shift.
judicial system, it's 18, right?
True,
Yeah.
true.
In individual relationships, I guess it depends on, the person and who you're looking at. But yeah, that's a big point to say, I felt so sorry for you because I could see what was coming. I don't know. Casey was a teacher, and I know teachers will say, they'll look at kids and they'll go, oh man, it's not that this kid doesn't have a chance, but this kid is going to have such a they can just see it because of how they're being raised, how the parents act, how they treat the child. And they're going, and then that kid invariably grows up and is doing the same thing to their kids. And then, those kids are going to grow up. And that's why you were
Yeah,
saying the circle of trauma. And I said, it is like a circle of trauma a lot
it
of
seems
times.
that way. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and
So,
it just keeps going.
well, research shows that in split families, I'll kind of bring it back to
Thank
this
you for that.
on what
Thank you.
kind of what the most important factors are. There's three things that are the most important for parents of children that are in split home situations, split house situations. Number one is, and the most important is the quality of the parenting. So just being
Hmm.
warm, supportive, um, positive communication, trying to keep conflict and negativity really low at a minimum, being consistent in your discipline, and protecting the child, letting the child feel safe and loved at home. That's the most important. The second one is helping the child maintain a relationship with both parents. So maintaining close bonds with both parents. I think this is where it can be hard sometimes for a parent because the reason you split with that other person is because you don't think they're that good of a person usually. And like, I don't want my kid to really like them. I want them to be close to me, not them. I mean, even when
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
married, you're thinking, I want my kid to be close to me. And so that can be hard. So just trying to keep that relationship going and support that relationship, even though it doesn't feel good, to support it and say, no, you need to spend time with the other person, so because children need secure attachments on both sides if they're going to grow up to be emotionally healthy. So that,
Right.
relationships between both parents are important. And then the third kind of most important factor is the level of conflict between the parents themselves. So if it's hostile all the time and there's, conflict between the two parents, it just gets hard. So if you can keep your children out of those disputes, then that's the best way to go about it. So
Yeah.
so sometimes it's better to split, and it's better for the kids if you split. And the
Hmm.
kids are physiologically built and cognitively built to learn the rules at both houses and switch back and forth and all that. It's really the emotional side of the kid that you have to worry about, and it's up to the parents to make sure they're providing that that situation, that environment for the kids to thrive in.
Yeah. Well said. That's well said.
Thank you.
Oh boy. Okay. I say it every week. Like I bring up, we have this topic or whatever. I'm like, can we do an hour on that? And here we are at an hour and 5 minutes, and very easily talked about this topic for an hour. So
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you.
Yes, and I think that the more we talk about topics like this and then bring in the brain side of it, once you understand certain things about the brain, that it's plastic, it's flexible, and some of the things about it, it's easy to start seeing a lot of different situations, how those situations fit in with brain development and what they can cause. And the more we talk about this, I think the more people will start, listeners will start to realize why we do the things we do and why other people do the things they do and what's probably good and what's probably not good. It just, because if you think about, we have these little squishy, this squishy blob of biomatter between our ears that has rules that it operates on. Then if we learn that, it just doesn't, it takes away some of the mysteries and things about behavior that don't need to
Yeah.
be there. Helps us understand
Yeah.
things better. So I think it's good. Even topics like this, I think not just always explaining, what what different brain areas do what, but just in general, when we're talking about, how do kids survive in two households and things like that, it helps us understand that better. And then keeping kind of an idea of how the brain works helps us understand the situation as well.
Yeah. Yeah. That is wonderful. That is the whole point of season 3. And I think we've talked about is I spent 2 seasons learning about my brain, and I feel like I have somewhat of a grasp of it. Now I want to start just talking about all of these situations and apply what the brain to these
Yeah.
different situations. And we're doing it. It's fun for me.
Yeah. Apply
So
the application side. I like
the
that.
application part. Yeah. So now
Mhm.
we're out of the education and theory part, but now we're in
Yes.
practical application of
Yep.
all of this. So perfect. Thank you, John. Any plugs, anything you want to add? Social media or anything?
No, I don't have any plugs. We have social media accounts with,
Mm-hmm.
John Teaches Sean and a website. And I have taken a little bit of a hiatus from Brain Dude as far as posting. I haven't been posting as much, but I've kind of been sitting back trying to figure out the direction I'm going to go. But
Okay.
I'm Brain Dude on
Brain underscore dude, right?
Brain underscore Dude, right? On YouTube,
Yeah.
X, TikTok, I think Blue Sky. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not trying to unduly pressure you in any direction, but I was really enjoying your TikTok. And I've noticed that you're not, posting as much. So I haven't been, mentioning it on the show or anything because I don't want to pressure you. But boy, I was really liking those short little vids about, your brain and that. So
Okay.
for what
That's
that's
good to
worth.
know. All right.
Yeah. So everybody who's still listening, same weekly. I'll stop here in a couple of weeks, but I really want to get some feedback about the new format on what we were just discussing, why we made the change, what it is, and
Yeah,
so give us a shout out.
that would be the plug I should have given, that I would like to give, is to try to get people to start communicating with us on social media. I would love that. I would love
Yeah.
to get some comments and maybe some suggestions on what to cover and
Yeah, throw a topic
questions
out.
to be asked, because it could just be a question that could be a quick answer or reply or something, or it might be something we talk about on the show. So I would like for
Yes.
people to get involved that way. That'd be great.
Me too. Awesome. All right, John. Thank you so much, and for everyone listening. Take care of yourself, and until next week, we'll see you then.
Brain Teacher Sean.